What's up, Samurai? We are back in some more Wayfinder, and today is going to end up being a video that will hopefully help you guys moving into the future of how you build your characters. Lots of you guys keep asking me, and I kind of just keep beating around the bush, giving you generalized answers of, oh, just build the character the way you want kind of thing, whatever. But players have kind of already discovered what the meta is in terms of building and stuff like that. And I do want to give shout outs to you guys in my Discord, namely Spooky and some of you others that ended up kind of explaining it in a way that made sense to me, so I can end up explaining it back to you guys. So first of all, what build are you going for? Because the weapon is more specifically what's going to end up mattering. The character is also going to matter, but generally speaking, there's just going to end up being some characters that are outright better. And for the most part, the quick meta that I can give you guys is guns are OP. Shotgun, as far as I know, is the best, with rail guns coming at a close second, if I recall correctly. But that doesn't mean that you can't end up using melee weapons if you want. It's just most of all, combined with momentum hopping, guns can kind of keep you at a distance while also outputting mega amounts of damage. So the way that you end up building a character is actually going to end up being determined by the artifacts that you have on your equipment, the weapon, and the character. But it's not complex. It's actually very, very simple. Most of all the echoes are going to come into play. We'll talk about abilities, we'll talk about affinity, and we'll talk about mastery very briefly. Now, first of all, for character affinity, let's do this in steps. The funny thing is, when a character levels up, that's when you actually get passive stats towards that character. Affinity stats do not affect Wingrave's power in any way. I mean, it does and it doesn't. It's not like the affinity is necessarily making Wingrave himself stronger. What it's actually doing is it's going to end up affecting the weapons and equipment, and more particularly the echoes that we end up having equipped. Those are what will scale off of these stats. I know, it's kind of weird. The game doesn't really explain that, but it seems like a big crucial portion of information. Now, another thing too is in this menu, you can always view affinity perks, which you can see what these are going to end up being at certain focus levels and discipline levels and instinct levels. But generally speaking, what you're going to do is max out focus at 15, and then you're going to keep discipline and instinct as even as possible until you're out of points. That's it. It's that simple, dude. Similarly, the way that the weapons, can you stop being stupid, controller? The stats that you're going to prioritize, okay, screw this controller. The stats that you're going to focus on for your weapons go in this order, which is going to be weapon power, crit power, break power, and crit rating. That's the priority of the stats that you're going for. So you'll max out this stat first because it's going to have weapon power and crit power, obviously the top priorities. Second would end up being this because the crit rating and the crit power or break power. And then this one is going to end up being max health and ability power. Obviously, the max health isn't going to end up affecting your damage. And this game is quite simple in the fact that you are trying to maximize the output of your damage rather than giving yourself survivability. Now, ability power is still an important stat, but more specifically, that's going to end up being affected by the accessories you're focusing on. So for the stats of accessories that you want, the priority is going to end up being ability power, weapon power, and crit rating. Now, one thing I gotta mention is that players, as far as I can tell, nobody really knows what the hell crit rating does. Obviously, it's going to be your crit chance, but nobody really knows how to calculate it properly. It's just very strange. One last note is that for tanky characters like Wingrave and stuff, the weapon power, as far as I know, is what's going to end up scaling his healing, but it's just by such a moot amount that you can't really be like, oh, I'm gonna make Wingrave an ultimate healer. Like, just don't bother. Now, moving on to the echoes. This is kind of a very daunting and intimidating portion of the game because this is basically mods from Warframe. They work very similar to Warframe. So again, you're going to end up picking mods that will focus on the specific stats that you want. But one thing to keep in mind is the capacity and affinity, or whatever they used to call it in Warframe. Basically, you see this little icon right here. Just sorry, my face cam's in the way. You see how this little icon is a sword? Well, that means that if we end up going to the sword category and socketing something into that slot, it's not going to end up taking as much capacity as something that is not supposed to go into that slot. It doesn't mean that you can't do it. but it's there. Obviously, as well as you level all of these up, you're going to increase your total capacity, which you can see is what these numbers here are on the right. You can only go to a certain amount. You'll get more mod slots later on. And I checked the roadmap for this game, and apparently later on in this game's life cycle, when you end up getting duplicates of like weapons or crafting materials for weapons or even characters, you'll be able to awaken those items, and it'll basically give you more and more mod slots and mod capacity. So that's obviously going to end up coming into the game far into the future when we actually have content that is going to challenge us more so than what already does, you know. But important to note is that the accessories that you're rocking can also have mod capacity as well. And the most important thing that you can focus on is the Echo Fusion. So that is just leveling up the Echo by sacrificing smaller ones. Think of it as gem dust from Trove, basically, or just mods from Warframe. It's pretty much the exact same mechanic. Now, the thing is, no matter what, you're gonna have to upgrade your Echoes or mods or whatever at some point, because in order to get to the end game content, which gets you access to stronger Echoes, you have to end up leveling up your previous Echoes so that you're strong enough to handle those areas in the first place. So I think in terms of Trove, you have to get Crystal 2 before you can get Crystal 3, before you can get Crystal 4, so on and so forth kind of thing, right? Obviously, it's a little bit different in this game, but either way, the point still stands. Now, moving on to the abilities, this is what is going to really differentiate how your character is played versus others. You can always respec the abilities, so it doesn't really matter what you end up speccing into, but generally speaking, this is where I would say you kind of want to just pick whatever you feel like. You know, do you want to end up increasing your healing capacity? Do you want to end up increasing your ult? Like, what abilities are you using more, and what are you lacking? Are you lacking survivability, or are you lacking damage? In which case, I would prioritize that with each of these, you know, accordingly. Now, moving lastly into mastery, this is also where some variation in your character is going to take place, because the way that this mastery system works, which I kind of really don't like, is that by using a weapon on a character, you'll end up gaining XP towards that character's mastery. But unfortunately, it's not a universal thing like I think it should be. You can see Venomous has completely different mastery setups. But the point being is, if you end up finding a favorite of your weapon, or if you want to min-max, you can actually go into the mastery and you can start seeing what are the passive abilities that you can equip when you end up getting to higher and higher tiers within the mastery tree. So you can only equip one of these at a time, and then depending on your mastery level, you'll be able to get up to mastery level 3. But obviously you have to have a lot of mastery. It requires a lot of grind time with a specific weapon in order to do that, which is why I would recommend picking and sticking with one weapon on a character, at least, you know, at least unless it's something that you don't find fun. Because at the end of the day, aside from all of this min-maxing and meta about like how you would build characters and stuff like that, generally speaking, it has to be fun, right? And so I'd suggest play the character that you want, play the weapon that you want. But as far as building the characters and weapons, that's pretty standard with just focus and then, you know, weapon power and so on and so forth. But you can see certain weapons will actually scale their stats differently. So it gets a little bit tricky, but for the most part, this game is very simple. You are just trying to increase as much damage as possible. Anyways, hopefully you found this video helpful. I just wanted to have this as a standalone, let you guys know what's up, what's going on in terms of how you build your characters and stuff. You know, with the queue time and everything getting a little bit more under control, it means that people can actually start playing this freaking game. And yeah, I hope to see you guys in game, and excuse the fact that my characters themselves are really low level. I'm taking this information from others that have gotten a lot stronger than me. But anyways, I'm hoping I can catch up eventually, but being a content creator is gonna be quite slow. Anyways, smash like, sub for more, buy the merch you want, support the channel, and have a wonderful day.